Blake Lively is in the middle of a full-scale courtroom crisis, and this time it's not a rumor. Ryan Reynolds, her husband, just confirmed the one truth everyone whispered about, and coming from him, it hit like a sledgehammer. Her perfectly curated image crumbled in seconds. Watching a man turn on his wife is tough, but some say Ryan had no choice. 2 major film deals were canceled, and a decade-long contract disappeared, thanks to Blake's ongoing scandal. Her attempt to play the victim made her public enemy #1 online. And if this was Ryan's quiet revenge, it worked. The pre-trial. Hearings in Blake's misconduct case have been dragging on. Subpoenas, Zoom testimonies, and a few shaky statements trickled in. Nothing headline-worthy. Then, out of nowhere, Ryan Reynolds was added to the witness list. Not voluntary, not confidential, court-ordered. The internet exploded. Disney hit pause on Deadpool 3. Ryan showed up through a side door after his team begged for an exemption. The judge refused, and now the world's waiting for what he says next. Judge Marsha Dempsey shut it down. No edits, no filters. The court wanted raw Ryan, live and under oath. Once sworn in, he kept it cool, but cut deep. Ryan confirmed a blowout fight in November 2023 after discovering late-night texts between Blake and actor Justin Baldoni. The messages? Not work-related. Blake called Justin emotionally attentive and said he made her feel understood, unlike Ryan. That's when, according to him, the unraveling began. Not from heartbreak, but from fear. Fear of losing her public image. He didn't accuse her of lying, but pointed out the accusations came after the texts, not before. Blake's lawyers objected. Hearsay, they cried. Judge Dempsey waved it off. Spousal privilege didn't protect her here. Worse, Ryan's testimony clashed. Hard with Blake's January affidavit. The room wasn't full, but the reporters inside typed like it was Watergate. Then came the gut punch. Ryan quoted Blake saying, "If I don't frame this right, I lose the brand, the podcast deal, the seat at the table." His words were calm, but the damage was ice cold and irreversible. This wasn't about fear or physical harm. It was about betrayal. In court, Ryan made it clear. The heart of the issue was trust. The messages he found between Blake and Justin Baldoni weren't just friendly. They were persistent, flirtatious, and by his account, deeply inappropriate. When he confronted her in late 2023, Blake allegedly waved it off, calling his reaction dramatic. She told him it was harmless industry talk, nothing serious. But Ryan told the court that it wasn't the words themselves that cut deep. It was her sudden obsession with what would happen if those texts ever saw the light of day. That's when things took a darker turn. According to his sworn testimony, Blake floated the idea of taking control of the story. If it leaked, she said, she could get ahead of it, go public first, and steer the narrative. She hinted that if she positioned herself as the wronged party, the media would side with her. Ryan admitted he didn't take her seriously at first. He thought it was panic talking, maybe a desperate move to salvage her reputation. "I didn't think she'd actually go through with it," he said quietly. "I thought she just wanted to protect her brand." But that moment marked a turning point, both in their marriage and in this case. What had been framed as a misconduct allegation began to shift under the courtroom lights. Not because of tabloids, but because of Ryan's calm, surgical delivery. He wasn't emotional. He didn't try to tear her down. He stuck to specifics, dates, messages, emails. And the most damning fact? The messages between Blake and Baldoni happened weeks before her official complaint. That detail directly contradicted the timeline Blake gave in her January 2024 affidavit. The courtroom didn't need fireworks. Ryan's words landed like slow-burning matches, and then came the evidence. The very next morning, Ryan's legal team submitted authenticated exhibits. Not rumors, not gossip. Email threads between Blake and her publicist, Stephanie Jones, pulled from digital backups, verified by court-ordered forensic techs. These weren't casual exchanges, they were strategic planning sessions. And they'd soon speak louder than any testimony ever could. The atmosphere in the courtroom shifted sharply. Tension gave way to shock. An email from Blake, dated January 9, 2024, lit the fuse. She had written to her publicist, Stephanie Jones. Justin's been acting shady. If he leaks the texts, I'm done. I'll destroy him first. Let's own the narrative, like Amber did with Depp. That one comparison detonated in the room. Reporters audibly gasped. This wasn't spin, this was strategy. Suddenly, Stephanie Jones, previously hidden behind ironclad NDAs, was a name on every courtroom screen. Judge Dempsey immediately called a 10-minute recess, not for order, but for verification. She personally requested metadata checks, server, authentication, and a forensic integrity report. The verdict came back quick. The emails were legit. No alterations, no hacks. Blake sent them herself, just 4 days before her formal complaint. And that complaint now looked less like a cry for help and more like a calculated PR move. The timeline matched a flurry of sudden changes. Canceled. Interviews, product sponsors quietly pulling out. Editors were pitched new angles. Blake as the survivor, the silenced voice in Hollywood. It was a repositioning, not a reaction. Baldoni's legal team stayed quiet. They didn't need a rebuttal. The evidence spoke louder than any statement. When the judge returned, she looked directly at Blake's lawyer. Would the defense like to revise its position? There was no answer, because everything had already been said. The emails weren't just evidence. They were, as one former prosecutor put it live on CNN, a smoking gun. You don't say things like, destroy him or own the narrative when you're afraid, he said. You say them when you're already planning your next move. Overnight, the headlines shifted, from Blake Lively the survivor to Blake Lively the strategist. Meanwhile, Ryan Reynolds vanished from public view again. But the ripple effects of his testimony were already irreversible. The court was no longer asking if something happened with Justin Baldoni. The real question had become, was this complaint crafted as a PR weapon? And with each new exhibit, that line between truth and branding got blurrier. Now you might ask, why would a husband throw his wife under the legal bus? Why expose their private life to a courtroom and unleash damage that could erase her entire public image? The answer, it wasn't just personal, it was professional. Because ever since Blake's case exploded into scandal, Ryan's career has taken hit after hit. The first blow came from Disney. Once Ryan's name appeared in court docs tied to a misconduct case, the studio froze everything. Internal leaks revealed press tours for Deadpool and Wolverine were shelved indefinitely, even though the film was nearly ready for release. Executives cited ongoing domestic complications, a polished way of saying, this mess doesn't fit our family-friendly brand, and then came the financial gut punch. As the courtroom chaos dominated social feeds, Blake's PR team tried damage control. But their attempt to spin the narrative only poured fuel on the fire. Clips from old interviews resurfaced. TikToks dissected her Amber strategy. And hashtags like Known the Narrative started trending, for all the wrong reasons. Behind the scenes, Apple quietly pulled the plug. One executive, speaking anonymously to Deadline, didn't mince words. We loved the concept, but anything linked to that family right now, it's too hot to touch. For Ryan, it wasn't just a lost deal. It was a breaking point. He wasn't angry about the money. He was angry about the message. This was his brand on the line, a brand he'd spent 15 years building from the ground up. From Aviation Gin to Mint Mobile, from Deadpool to his underdog football club in Wrexham. Ryan Reynolds had carefully crafted a public persona as Hollywood's most likable everyman. Now, that image was being dragged through the headlines and twisted into something toxic. And to him, it wasn't because of anything he had done, but because of what he saw as Blake's reckless attempt to control the narrative, even if it meant torching everything in the process, and he wasn't the only one losing patience. Hugh Jackman, his co-star and longtime friend, allegedly raised the alarm inside Marvel. According to leaked studio memos, Hugh expressed concerns that the scandal could overshadow Deadpool 3, making it a meme instead of a blockbuster. The film's entire marketing campaign had been built on their chemistry. Now, insiders say Marvel is considering drastic options, separate press tours, a delayed release, even pulling promotional content until things die down, and the damage wasn't confined to just one studio. Prime Video reportedly hit pause on a Ryan-led dramedy centered on artificial intelligence and family dynamics, just 30 days from pre-production. The reason? Reputation risk, one executive bluntly said. Through all this, Ryan kept his public face calm, but sources close to him say privately he wasn't holding back. According to insiders, he told friends, "She didn't just mess with the truth. She messed with my entire career." Unchecked ambition. It wasn't just damaging Ryan Reynolds' public image. It was destroying everything he had spent years carefully building. To Ryan, this wasn't just betrayal. It was sabotage, plain and strategic. In one leaked message to a longtime friend, his frustration was raw. "She turned a PR problem into a legal war zone and dragged my entire career into it. I'm not collateral damage. I'm the actual target now." And that's why he flipped. Not out of revenge, not even out of heartbreak, but out of survival. Ryan watched his name. Still, Ryan resisted. He told execs he believed personal matters should be kept private. But the boardroom wasn't the only place heat was coming from. It was Blake, too. According to Ryan's sworn testimony, Blake unraveled when the calls stopped coming. Taylor Swift, once the crown jewel of her inner circle, ghosted her. Gigi Hadid unfollowed. Cara Delevingne bailed on a shared ad campaign at the last minute, and it wasn't random. The cold shoulders came after those internal emails. The ones showing Blake plotting a media ambush against Baldoni were subpoenaed. In public, Blake fell apart. But in private, Ryan said, she wasn't panicking. She was performing. The motion. To strike, Ryan's testimony hit the judge's bench within minutes. But Judge Dempsey barely blinked. She read it, folded it, set it aside without comment. Then came the pause. The long, charged silence where no one moved. No objections. No sidebar. Just tension heavy enough to press the oxygen out of the room. Blake Lively, still red-eyed and visibly shaken, sat hunched at the defense table like someone who had just realized the house she built was on fire, and the arsonist might have been her. The reporters in the gallery typed as if their fingers were on fire. Courtroom sketch artists raced to capture her raw collapse. Even the opposing counsel looked stunned. Not gloating, not triumphant, just stunned. Blake's lead attorney stood up slowly and asked for a recess, but the judge was done playing. "Denied," she said sharply. The witnesses' statements were factual, sworn under oath, and relevant to the timeline. The court will not erase uncomfortable truths. The sound of a gavel didn't follow. It didn't need to. The decision echoed louder than any hammer could. From that moment on, the defense began hemorrhaging credibility. Not because they made a mistake, but because Ryan had already told the story better than any of them could spin it. By the next morning, headlines were seismic. Reynolds' testimony shatters Lively defense. Hollywood power couple implodes. In real time, he was supposed to protect me. Trends the murder one. Worldwide social media was ablaze. Clips of courtroom transcripts went viral. Fan accounts debated loyalty. Legal experts debated strategy. But the public had made up its mind. Not everyone was Team Ryan, but very few still believed Blake. One commentator put it bluntly on Good Morning America. This wasn't just a marital dispute. This was the curtain being ripped off a calculated media campaign. Inside the courtroom, the fallout deepened. The prosecution, once confident, now fumbled through witness prep. Blake's PR advisor resigned that afternoon, and when court reconvened at 2:04 p.m., 2 seats were conspicuously empty. Blake's crisis management reps were gone. For the first time, she looked like someone who knew she was losing, not just the case, but the story. The courtroom may have calmed, but the industry was now in full panic mode. Blake Lively, once a bulletproof Hollywood icon, had become radioactive overnight. By Thursday, 3 luxury brands had dropped her from upcoming campaigns. One rep said off record, "We're not risking our Q4 on a firestorm we can't control." She wasn't being canceled. She was being erased. In West Hollywood, agency insiders joked that even her wax figure might get pulled from Madame Tussauds. Behind those jokes, Panic. Reputation contagion spreads fast in a town built on optics. Betty Buzz, her once celebrated beverage brand, saw shelf placement revoked in 2 major grocery chains. Distributors didn't offer a reason. They didn't have to. Meanwhile, Ryan Reynolds was nowhere to be seen. His name stayed out of pressers. His team stopped returning media calls. But sources close to his camp say he's gone fully private, operating under lockdown at a remote estate in upstate New York. One word from his publicist: rebuilding. Stephanie Jones, the now defunct PR queen, was subpoenaed Friday morning. Her silence was once bought, now it's being legally shredded. And with her agency in shambles, she has nothing left to protect but herself. Legal analysts say a plea deal is Blake's only real move left, but even that may come too late. Because in Hollywood, truth matters less than perception, and her image is bleeding faster than any crisis manager can bandage. By the weekend, whispers had turned into firm talks. Executives from 3 networks reportedly met to discuss a formal, blackout window on any projects involving Blake Lively or her production imprint. No press, no pickup, no packages, just quiet doors closing. And maybe that's the cruelest twist of all. Not the scandal, not the exposure, not even the betrayal, but the silence that follows, the one where no one calls back, where studio doors stay shut, where a legacy built on flawless brand control dies not with a bang, but with the click of an email that starts, "We're moving in a different direction."